Hello everyone, welcome to MJ Hobby Corner. I am Martin, also known as MJ, here on the channel. I am a scratch builder, a gamer, role player, a bunch of those different things in those themes. So today I want to introduce Galleys and Galleons. This is a game that I've been meaning to play for a while. It's been in my digital library collection for some time now, and I haven't had the chance to play it. And if you want to help support the channel or any of the work that I do, you can hop over to Patreon, YouTube memberships right here on YouTube, or War Games Vault and check out our Scratch Builder Monthly, which I try to write every month. A couple of days ago, I purchased the expansion to this game, which expands the game dramatically in terms of fantastical elements that you can add, and that's what really attracted me to these rules. Julie and I both prefer fantasy games or sci-fi games, but we really like our fantasy games, and this little rule set can be played in many different ways, including fantasy. So you can play it as a historical war game if you wanted to, and there's no problem with that. The game is designed with the Age of Discovery, Age of Sail theme in mind. Okay, so you can play it like that, or you can play it more like a Pirates of the Caribbean style game where you have, your pirate organizations facing off, you have sea monsters and magic and all that stuff. Or you can play it as a high fantasy game where your fleets are actually elf fleets and orc fleets and whatever. The game is very, very modular, and I love that. Now, very important before we go to the tabletop demo, this is not going to be a full game. I don't have a lot of time today, unfortunately, but we are going to go over the main core rules of the game. Let's get some dice, as Julie says, and get rolling. Okay, what do we need for Galleys and Galleons? All right, first and foremost, you're going to need your surface area. This game does not require a very large table. I do have a large table here, but it doesn't require it, especially depending on the scale of ships that you use. It doesn't require it. Also depends on the number of ships. So first things first, you're going to need your play area. If you're going to use terrain, then you'll need some terrain. You can fight in the open ocean, especially when learning the game, and that is also very cool. You need some way of marking the shore, which I use these plastic halos that I cut up in order to represent the shoreline. Now, keep in mind that in the rules, the shoreline is typically a short stick all around the island or rock or whatever it is you're representing, but I did not have enough plastic, so I just did the best I could with the shoreline. You do need to mark it somehow. Other than that, you're going to need a couple of templates. They're right in the book, and I did these by hand. I also did a little turning stick, a heading stick. That's what I call it. We'll see how that works in a minute. Measuring sticks, you will need measuring sticks or whatever measuring implement you use. The book has recommendations for different sizes. You will need 2 sets of colored dice. The book recommends white and red, but you can use any colors as long as you know what your standard activation dice are and what your damage dice are. Every ship gets 2 sets of dice. You need something with the ship stats on it. I use my index cards right now. And I'm using my little roll-on thing. That's kind of optional. All of these things here, they're all optional. Little explosion markers. We have the little cotton to represent broadsides. And that's a good way to mark your broadsides because I am going to use the reloading rule, which is optional. And of course, a copy of the rules, which mine is digital. All right, so that pretty much covers it. This is my setup, and do excuse the lighting in the room right now. It's a little weird, but it is earlier in the morning. Okay, so now that we have all of that stuff set up, the little ships that I will be using are Whiz Kids, Little Pirates of the Spanish Main. This was a game that I used to love to play with my niece. And on that side over there, we have the Spanish merchant galleon that I named La Trinidad, or the Trinity. And this is an armed merchant ship, a pretty big boat. Ship, not boat. And then we have the little pirate yacht here. And this is the Black Reef. That's the name of that boat. The Black Reef is a small pirate yacht. And this little scenario that I'm going to be playing is inspired by the Pursuit scenario, which is an introductory scenario. In the Pursuit scenario, the merchant vessel over there, the pirate vessel over here, any ship that damages each other, it's 1 victory point per damage received. If the merchant vessel gets to the safety of the port, that is imaginary port that's in this corner, that ship will get 4 victory points. If this ship captures or sinks the merchant vessel, then the pirate gets 4 victory points. And at the end of the scenario, you simply compare victory points. Very straightforward, very easy, good introductory scenario. Only 2 ships, 1 each player, and it's pretty cool. Okay, so let's see that in action. Now, the other thing is the wind, and that's going to be very important. Let's see how the wind works. Before I begin, let me give a very quick explanation of what's on this template. All of these are compass points. There are 16 of them. Each of these represent a point that a ship can change heading. Okay, so I'm using my little stick here to transfer that information to the ships. You can do it any other way you want. This is the way I'm doing it. Then you have these spaces in the middle, and what this tells you is the category or heading that the ship is currently in relative to the wind. So the different names for the different headings are running, broad reach, close haul, in irons. Now, if the wind is coming in this direction, and the ship is in irons, it cannot move unless you have a special ability. Running for many ships is a great advantage when the wind is coming from the rear, either at an angle or straight through. And running for some ships gives it is its fastest move, its longest move. Movement is and speed is all related to these sticks. Okay, you only have 3 speeds. So to use this template, all I do is match this little arrow to the direction of the arrow on the template. Okay, and that's, so if the wind is coming in this direction, I put the arrow that way, and the bow of the ship, the very front tip of the ship, is going to tell me which of these headings it is currently on. It's a very, very clever little system. I like that about Ganesha games. Okay, initiative. White is the Spanish. Okay, so Spanish merchant ship has 3, pirate ship has 2. Spanish merchant ship is the acting player. They're also the defender. The pirate vessel is the attacker. Okay, that's perfect. So initiatives rolled on the first turn. The defender now gets to set the direction of the wind. Okay, so I'm going to pick a direction that may benefit me. And right there, south-southwest, so the wind is coming in this direction at an angle. And now the attacker has the option of turning the wind direction either clockwise or anti-clockwise. And that final direction will be the direction, the starting wind direction. So I'm just going to use this template because it really helps. And I match my arrows in the direction that the wind is actually going, put it over my ship, check where the bow is pointing, and the ship is currently on the heading of close haul relative to the wind. Now let's see our Spanish merchant. Very roughly put it over the ship, and we see that our bow is actually running. Okay, so let's see. What does that mean? Okay, close haul. We look at the back of my little stack card. I have a table from the book that gives me all the headings relative to the wind, relative to the rigging that the ship has. And this is a Latin rigged, which is the little triangular sails there. And we said that it was close hauled, so the ship will get a medium stick of movement this turn. Let's see our merchant galleon. It is running. It gets a medium stick this turn. This ship gets its best movement when it's broad reaching. Okay, so that's a good note. Okay, and now the yacht, let's see, also gets its best movement when it's broad reaching. So these vessels are pretty well matched with their rigging and everything else. And for the first turn, before I do anything, this wind movement that I'm about to do is a mandatory movement. All ships have to make their forward movement a mandatory movement. It can happen anytime throughout the ship's activation, but it has to happen. Even if there's a turnover and you have a couple more ships and you roll 2 failures on your dice, even then the ships that did not move have to make this mandatory movement forward. They just don't get any actions, okay, if they fail. Now this ship is, I believe I'm going to give it, after I roll my activations, I'm going to give the Spaniard ship 2 dice. He is quality 3, as we see here. So here is the Song of Blades and Heroes mechanic, the Ganesha Games mechanic. Let's see. So I need, see how many successes I get. All right, a 5 and a 2. I got 1 success, 1 failure. If I had more ships, the turn stays with me. I'm going to ignore that failure. I got 1 action to give. So I think I'm going to move my mandatory movement first. Ship goes from bow to bow. There we go. That is my mandatory wind movement. Okay, now what? I have 1 action, so I think looking at the action table, there's a whole selection of things that I can do on my turn. This ship is getting a little close to these shorelines. Shorelines are very important because if I run into them with this vessel and I don't have any special ability to be able to navigate through shorelines, I have to roll and possibly take damage. So this vessel, on the other hand, has special abilities like the ability Shallow Draft, okay, which means that this vessel can cross the shallows. It does not have to roll for damage. And it also has sweeps, which means this vessel can pull out oars and actually move itself a short distance, even if there's no wind, okay? There, 1 little slot right there. I can do that only once per action, okay? So it is a little sluggish. It turns very slowly. And if you notice, my little lines very roughly match the actual compass points, okay? Because each of these is a turn, a heading direction, or a compass point. Okay, that ends our Spanish merchant's turn. So we can envision the crew member on the crow's nest of the Trinity, and he is looking through his spyglass, and suddenly he spots a small vessel not too far, and it's headed straight for them. And the crew member, the spotter, yells out, "Hey, Captain! Sails on the horizon, 1 point to the port bow!" So the captain releases, gets that information with other crew members, begins to look through his little book as he gets descriptions of the insignias. And indeed, there is that skull and crossbones on one of the flags. This little vessel is trouble. They are a part of a band of pirate vessels that have been terrorizing this area. So the captain must now make a choice. Okay, so let's see another example of movement before I summarize this first turn. This first turn is almost over. So we have our little Latin rigged vessel here, the pirate yacht. This is the Black Reef, and let's see what he does. Now, we said, let me just make sure again, because I always forget this stuff. Okay, he is currently in close haul. According to his bow and according to the direction of the wind, he is close haul. Right, he is 1 medium stick of movement. That's right. MJ, come on. All right, so we're going to put the little stick of movement there. This is mandatory movement. Let's see though, how many actions will this pirate captain want? Okay, I think he's gonna want to get as close as possible. He is going to want to hit this larger ship. Now remember, this is an armed vessel, and the pirate knows that. This is an armed vessel because they're probably checking their own little book to see what kind of vessel that is. He's gonna want to fire a little bit, maybe soften him up, then do a boarding action once he thinks it's clear. That ship, it can do a lot of harm. So he is going to, I think, take two actions. Going to be a little conservative. Let's see if these two orders succeed. Now he is quality 2, so they are a good crew. This is a seasoned crew and a good seaworthy little boat ship. Sorry. Quality 2, 2 successes, not a problem. Now, when I think what he's going to do is use the greater maneuverability of this boat. This boat has yaw, which means it can change its heading by 2 points for every action it spends. So it is not built like a bathtub like our Spaniard friend over there. He is going to then turn his 2 points and he doesn't care much about the shore. Now, he cannot hit that island. If he hits this edge of the island, then he's screwed. There's nothing that's going to save him there. But he's pretty confident in the maneuverability of his ship. Now he moves his mandatory movement at the end of his turn. Before, I moved at the beginning of the turn. But now, he's going to move there. He has one more action now. Okay, you know what? You know what? He is going to use that action, that last action that he succeeded on. He's going to use it to make another 2-point turn and straighten up a little bit and go through the strait. Okay, so he just did like a little snake move. That's going to be his action. So now turn 1 is over. I think we've seen the mechanic of the wind. Don't you think so? Now, one important thing about the wind, and we did not see it here. Any doubles that I roll during my activation, the wind will change either clockwise or anti-clockwise 1 point. And whether it's clockwise or anti-clockwise will be determined by whether I roll a 1 through 3 or a 4 through 6. 1 through 3, I believe, is anti-clockwise. We will check that before I do anything. And clockwise will be any 4, 5, or 6. But you have to roll doubles. So there is a random wind change that is controlled by the player's activation. Okay, turn 2 is now over, and here's the position of the ships. Now, the Spaniard captain wanted to change his heading in order to go broad reaching, which gives him more speed. Now the Spaniard wants to get to this side, right this edge here. There's safety. It is the port that he needs to get to, and now the pirate vessel has gone forward to try to intercept him. But notice how close this captain came to the shallows, and that he had to use 2 actions, which he succeeded. 1 action to make the initial course correction, then the mandatory wind movement of 1 long stick, and finally another change of course. Okay, so he came very close to running aground there, to taking damage. "We're gonna run aground," he yells out. But the Spaniard captain is wise. He has his experience. He brings the ship close to the shore, but in this way ensuring that his bow catches the right heading, the right winds. His sails catch the right winds on his big ship, despite its sluggishness. On the Black Reef, meanwhile, this arse of a captain. I like this man. Bold he is. Yes, I will consider this man when I board his ship and gut his crew. Oh, that is one bold captain. Now, one thing that's important is anytime these course corrections take place, even a 1 point, it could change the heading and therefore speed of the ship. So it's a good idea to check all the time, because This ship was broad reaching and now it is running. So now I have to change this because running speed, depending on the heading to the wind, is a medium stick and not a long stick. So before, because he changed his heading, he got the long stick, he captured the wind. Now he is going medium speed because this ship has changed heading. So, medium move. And does he have a shot? Oh, yes he does. He has one action left. Now it's going to be a regular shot. I'm just doing the cone of the broadside, which is why I have my little sticks here. And we are just going to do that just to give us a little visual. Yes, he is within that arc. Too bad I couldn't do a broadside. A broadside takes 2 actions, but it's more devastating. However, he can still fire. Okay, so let's check range. The range to the pirate vessel is 1 long stick, so it is a long range. So that's -1 to the combat factor of the firing ship. So anything beyond this point gives you -2. I'm going to give him -1. If I'm at medium range, so closer, there is no modifier, and if the ships are at short range or closer, the vessel gets +1 to his combat. His combat is already -1 because he's a merchantman. So that is so from 3 to 2 because he's a merchantman, and now another -1 because he's at long range. That leaves him with a 1. A 1. All right, now our pirate vessel has combat 1, so he cannot fire back, and I do allow enemy vessels to fire back. They're both firing at the same time, but he cannot fire because his bow is pointed to that ship, and unless you have chaser guns, you're not allowed to fire from the bow or stern. These ships don't have chaser guns, so the bow and stern cannot fire. But in the future, we are going to add that upgrade, because then that means the ship can fire on all axes in a long range. Okay. The number to the captain, the captain's ship, the merchant ship has won the combat. We consider modifiers in order to see who won the combat. However, when we're considering whether shots hit and damage, we have to consider the natural die rolls, not the modified die rolls. Okay, so the merchant vessel has won, but has he actually damaged? Well, this number is an even number, which means that he caused damage. If this number was an odd number, these shots have no effect. There's no damage. Okay, so maybe they bounced off the hull, whatever it is, they do no damage if this roll was odd. If this roll doubles, look at that, it's doubled, and I'm talking about the natural rolls, that's what you consider. The double means that not only does the ship take a damage, but it has to roll on the critical table. If I triple it, it takes 2 damage and a roll on the critical table. So this is not good news. I have 3 red dice here. So now I replace one of these regular activation dice with 1 red dice. Now if the captain of the pirate vessel wants to make an activation roll with all 3 dice, he's gonna have to take that red dice with him. If he rolls a 1 on that dice, regardless of what the white dice roll, if he rolls a 1, he has to roll on the mishap table. Remember, there are 2 tables for damage. The mishap is a little less than the critical table. All right, well, he has his 1 damage because of the doubling of the roll. And now let us roll on the critical table. So the roll in the critical table, and I'm pulling out my other dice here. It's good to have a few extra dice in addition to those, since those will be used for marking things. Okay, 2 black dice, 2d6 on the critical table. Oh, no way. Oh, that could be bad. This could end the game right here. Oh, crap. A 10. Fire! Fire takes hold somewhere in the ship and will continue to burn until it is put out, requiring 3 actions. No actions other than attempting to put the fire out may be performed while a ship is ablaze. Okay. At the start of the player's next and all subsequent turns, before attempting to activate the vessel, re-roll on the critical damage with a +3 modifier. Any vessel which contacts a burning ship will immediately also catch fire. So if this were a boarding action and he got that result, this ship will be in danger of also catching fire. Interesting. All right. Let's put our smoke and explosion. So there is an explosion aboard this pirate vessel. There is the burning pirate vessel. Oh, I think this captain has bit a little bit more than he can chew against that big Spanish merchant galleon. A crew member runs frantically. Captain, Captain, ship's on fire. Captain just looks at him. I can see that, you sea louse. Well, put it out. And you hear in the background a bird's voice. Ship on fire. Well, obviously we play until the ship is completely destroyed, but it's a good chance that our Spaniard merchant's going to be able to come around and get to safety before this vessel anything happens. But let's roll again to see if the fires are put out. Now that is a quality test. And it is quality 2, so these guys are not bad. So I'm going to assume it's 3 successes. I don't really see, because it says it requires 3 actions, but it doesn't really see how many successes out of those 3 actions are required. I'm going to assume it's 3, so because fire is such a serious threat to the ship, and the pirates they have a quality of 2. Okay, very, very close. Now, and we have 3 successes, so the fire is put out. If that fire had not been put out, if I had failed one, he could get a mishap if he rolled 1, or basically I would have to roll again on the critical table with a +3. That brings me closer to actually a magazine explosion, which means a pirate vessel would have been nothing but debris. All right, ships are at short range to each other. Both of them fire. However, the Spanish merchant, it's the Spanish merchant's turn, so he's the one that's going to spend, we're going to say there were 3 actions. He's going to spend 2 actions to actually fire the broadside. Now, this ship is firing back, but only a couple of guns. He's not firing a broadside because it's not his turn. He doesn't have a chance to really spend any actions. This is just a defensive fire. But I do let both ships fire at each other at the same time. That's not really in the rules, but that's how I do it because it's a little more realistic that way. What happens? A broad fire gives a -1 to the target's combat factor. So this factor is now a 0, not a 1. It is a 0. And now this ship has combat factor 2, and he is firing at short range. That's right, that is the other modifier. Like I said, merchant vessels in this game are not, unless they're unarmed completely, a merchant galleon can do a lot of damage. Even though they're not soldiers, these ships are tough. So the merchants are at it today, defending their ship against a puny little pirate vessel. Maybe that pirate vessel made a mistake. All right, +3 on the white dice, +0 on the red dice. Look at that. Obviously, the Spanish vessel won, but not only that, he triples the pirate vessel. So what happens? Pirate vessel takes 2 damage, replaces its 2 white die with all red die. Good, I'm glad that happened. All red die. He is now crippled because all his dice are red. Not only that, but he has to roll on the critical damage table. Let's just do this for fun. What the hey? And he is no longer on fire. Well, he's going to be on fire now. An 8. What does it say? Hull damage. The vessel takes 1 further damage. If the ship is already crippled, if it has received 3 damage already, yes it has. This hit causes it to lose its struggle with the waves, and it's sunk. There is the critical roll, ladies and gentlemen. So this ship explodes and sinks. There it is, the pirate vessel is smoking and slipping beneath the waves. And the pirate, as the ship is sinking, whatever hellish pit I go to, I swear I will find... There it is. And the little parrot flies off. Quack! You're screwed. Quack! You're screwed. Back to an island, and the island has gained another wildlife individual. So, all right, there it is. We'll just say that. Now, let's just go through a couple of other little things since I didn't give too many examples in this little demo. Collisions, one big difference. If this ship moved a mandatory wind movement during the turn, so we covered mandatory movements every turn with respect to the wind, I would consider that a collision, and both ships can take damage, okay? Because it was something out of the vessel's control. However, if the ship moves and touches base to base with this ship because of its intention to grapple, I wouldn't call this a collision, because then, now, the ship does need a grapple action in order to successfully grapple, okay? And then once that happens, then it's on its way to board the other ship. The important thing is that these ships are considered to be moving while grappled, okay? Vessels that are grappled can spend 2 actions to cut those grapples, okay, if they have actions available. So I would assume in the next turn, the merchant vessel can try to cut the grapples to free itself, and it also gets a minimum distance of heading change or movement in order to avoid a collision with the now cut ship, because the wind would immediately begin to push it again, you know, if the grapples are free. To conduct boarding actions, it happens exactly the same way gunnery, with some important exceptions. First, to grapple, you don't have to roll. You just give your intent of grappling, touch the ship. This is the only time the ships don't collide with each other, is during a intent to grapple. Then you spend an action. Now, in order to do the boarding party, you need to spend another action. So you're going to need a minimum of 2 actions to be able to grapple and then jump into the other ship, and then the fighting takes place just like gunnery. However, one important difference is that, for example, the merchant galleon has high castles, which means it has +1 combat during a boarding action. So this would go from 2 to 3 right away. And then that's the only other boarding action. Same thing with swashbucklers for the yacht. If I were playing where my ships were upgraded and gave them the 37 points cost value, then the pirate vessel would also have swashbucklers, which would give them a +1 combat when boarding. And I did that in that first game to increase his combat value a little bit during boarding actions, okay? So during boarding actions, this ship would be even. It would be +2 to combat factor, +2 to combat factor, and then they fight their boarding, and again, damage is taken the same way. Now, one important difference during a boarding fight, and I'm not covering every single thing about the rules either, but these are some of the things I noted were important. Damage is a little different during boarding. During this time, if the ship reaches a critical level of damage, that ship immediately strikes its colors. The ship that has the 3 critical damage, the pirate yacht, strikes its colors and surrenders, which at this point the opponent can claim that ship as a prize. Okay, so that's a very important difference between long-range gunnery and boarding. And damage, this crippled result in ranged damaged. If this was a result of gunnery and not boarding actions, this ship will have a -1 combat factor permanently throughout the game because it is crippled. That also in addition to whatever damage and whatever roll on the critical table it has to take. So yeah, it's pretty brutal. Let's say our merchant vessel miscalculated. This merchant vessel would have to roll. I put the 3 sticks there. It rolls dice. It's a quality test depending on the speed it was going when it ran aground. So let's say it was traveling a short speed, so not very fast, a short stick. It would roll 1 die and it would be a quality test, and it has to pass that quality test. Ship doesn't take damage. It's okay. It has to get out of there though. Let's say it was traveling at medium stick, then you get 2 dice. Okay, passed them both. And now if it was traveling the full stick here, it takes 3 dice if it's traveling the long stick, and it is it is not activation dice. So in this case, this double, I don't think would trigger a wind change, because a wind change occurs, random wind change occurs during the player's activation. This is technically not an activation, it is a damage check. But anyway, okay, so there it takes 2 failures, which means 2 damage. It would then replace 2 of its white dice with the red dice, and basically that would be the situation there. And that's because the ship was running too fast and ran aground. When it did, it is taking excess damage from this move. I don't even roll that ship. It immediately takes excess damage. The ship sinks beneath the waves. Okay, so if it is crippled and it runs aground into the shallows, the ship will sink automatically. So depending on different conditions, the crippled result can do different things, and it'll be devastating. So important is ships can repair. They can spend actions to repair hull damage. Critical hits on the critical table, however, cannot be repaired unless the result is hull damage. Okay, so that's cool, because let's say I suffered a damage earlier from that blazing fire. I was able to turn the fire out. I can then use actions to repair that damage, thanks to the carpenters and other individuals on board that would then rush to try and repair that damage. But it is important to note that critical damage, other than hull damage, cannot be repaired. So that is cool that it does have a built-in repair mechanic for these ships. Okay, so to the best of my ability, this is the very first time I ever played this game, so I'm sure mistakes are to be had. You know, let me know in the comments if you've played this game before. I'm gonna keep practicing this game on my own. Then I'm gonna teach it to Julie, because I think she's gonna have a lot of fun with this game. Now, the game says that you can play this in under an hour, and yeah, I believe it. Absolutely, you can definitely, especially if playing with 2 ships like that. If you have other ships, I think it's still going to go very quickly. So this is a very good little naval war game. Now, notice that there's not a lot of record taking. I may take 1 or 2 notes on the index cards for certain things, but there's no record keeping really. The tables take care of everything. You do have 2 tables for damages, critical, and mishap. You also have a variety of smaller tables for the wind change, everything else. I do think the random movement of the wind change with the player's activation is a clever mechanic. I really like the wind mechanic. It's very interesting, and it's not hard to learn. And the little heading template, which is the one with all the little headings marked on it, it helped me a lot to determine whether the ship was broad reaching or close hauled, and the fact that the rigging of the ship is what affects the the speed. Excellent. I like that about this game. We will be looking into the fantasy rules for this game. There is magic, there is giant sea creatures, there are submersibles, airships, a bunch of different things that you can add to the game, including ironclads and steam vessels. Now that's going to change things, and I really want to experiment with that, because I was looking for a naval war game that can do that without being tremendously complex. So Gonna keep learning this game. We have some practicing to do. I gotta learn my boarding actions a little more, collisions versus grappling and all that stuff. But this is a cool little game, and I had a lot of fun. And I hope you didn't mind the cheesy little acting of the captains, but it does bring a lot more fun to the game. I love doing that, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Future games, future 2-player, solo, future games are definitely coming with different ships. So thank you, folks, and I'll see you in the next video, and I hope you enjoyed this. That is it. All right, have a great one, folks, and we'll talk in the next video.